In The Dark Knight, Batman has a battle of wills with the Joker because he refuses to take the villain's life no matter the cost. In Batman v Superman, Legal Battle of the Century, Batman tries to skewer Superman with a spear. That's because the DCEU portrays its heroes in a darker light that shows how blurry the line between hero and villain can be when you're a god among men.
Permission to come aboard.
Now, the DCEU decided to show that this wasn't your Cartoon Network Superman pretty early on with Man of Steel. Instead of having a miraculous super fight in a big city that resulted in 0 human casualties, Zack Snyder decided to realistically show just how devastating to the city of Metropolis it would be if 2 Kryptonians duked it out. It's been estimated that the fight likely took 129,000 lives and cost over $2 trillion, according to the Washington Post. After Zod and Superman level pretty much the entire city, Superman is then forced to brutally snap his neck. Fans have been debating ever since whether this was a line Superman should never cross, or whether it shows just how much more difficult being Superman would be in the real world. Batman has been portrayed in a dark light many times over the years. We've seen him as a grizzled anti-hero, a vampire, and a paranoid genius who designs ways to brutally take down all of his friends.
You gotta be kidding me with that.
Neutralize, not kill.
None of that compares to the line he crosses in Batman v Superman, where it's revealed that Batman brands the worst criminals in Gotham, an act that basically marks them for execution by the other prisoners. This reframes Batman as not as much of a heroic vigilante, but an executioner. I guess that explains why we don't see most of Batman's villains in the DCEU. I doubt Riddler lasted very long in the DCEU prison system. Without a doubt, the best part of the Snyder Cut of Justice League was the upgraded role Cyborg got. While the original cut of the film just sliced out most of his arc, the new version dug into the terrifying implications of someone as powerful as Cyborg. When Victor Stone first explores his powers, he basically discovers that he could flip the entire world's nuclear arsenal and economy on its head with no effort at all. I don't know what's more terrifying, the fact that Vic has the ability to so effortlessly reshape the world, or the fact that part of me really wants to see him do it. While many fans didn't care much for Wonder Woman 1984, I thought it was an entertaining throwback to Diana's post-crisis George Perez days. That being said, there was one baffling choice that changed the movie from a fun adventure film to an episode of Law & Order SVU. When Diana wished Steve Trevor back to life, he actually ended up possessing the body of a random person. This dude. That makes the implications of their romance in the sequel more than a little creepy. Diana, I know you're Zeus's daughter and all, but that doesn't mean you have to be as freaky with the mortals as he was. Yeesh. For years, Aquaman was the butt of everyone's jokes thanks to his ocean-based superpowers and his silly Super Friends costume. The DCEU decided to put those jokes to bed forever by casting Khal freakin' Drogo as the King of Atlantis. If his performance in Justice League wasn't enough to get you to respect just how tough this Aquaman was, the scene where he casually lets Black Manta's pirate father perish should have done the trick. If the comic book rivalry between the two is any indication of where the series is headed, Black Manta is going to get more than his share of revenge in the sequel. Oof, that is cold-blooded. The original Christopher Reeve Superman portrays the big blue Boy Scout in such a kind light that you would never really think of him as scary. Well, it turns out that Superman is actually terrifying. The DCEU's Nightmare timeline portrays a world where Darkseid corrupts Kal-El, leading him to conquering the world. Of course, nowadays everyone has their own evil Superman, but in Batman v Superman, watching him slay people with his heat vision was a shocking sight to see. The biggest moment in the DCEU that pushes one of our heroes to the brink of villainy was when Batman held that spear over Superman's head. Sure, the Tim Burton Batman used to take people out all the time, but he wasn't exactly skewering people with spears. In retrospect, though, this moment definitely represents Batman's redemption more than his corruption. This was the point where he realized what he'd become and drove him to creating the Justice League as an act of atonement. Still, it's a scary realization that Batman is a more intimidating villain than any of his rogues gallery. The Joker barely managed to off Robert De Niro, let alone the Man of Steel. Sure, it was a cool bit of fan service to reveal that General Swanwick was the Martian Manhunter, but it also revealed that John Johns is a big old chicken. Manhunter could have helped turn the tide on so many of the DCEU's catastrophes that it is kind of shocking he had the gall to reveal himself to Batman at the end of the Snyder Cut. You can't show up late for all the world saving and pretend that everything's all good, John. Shazam was without a doubt the most fun DCEU film. It showed just how entertaining it would be if a kid was given the powers of a god. It also showed just how much of a bad idea it would be if a kid was given the powers of a god. Instead of caring about the whole "with great power comes great responsibility" thing, Billy was more than happy to charge cell phones, buy alcohol, and try to get famous. This reaches a head when Billy almost takes out a bus full of people, but then happily takes credit for saving them. Eventually, he does learn just what it means to be a hero, but you gotta wonder if he ever would have gotten there if it weren't for Savannah and the sins forcing him to that point. Harley Quinn's delightful turn in Birds of Prey reframes the Suicide Squad star as a misunderstood anti-hero in need of her own story far away from the Joker. Of course, that story still features Quinn rampaging across Gotham City, wrecking police stations, shopping centers, and perfectly innocent egg sandwiches. She may not exactly be framed as a hero in the story, but she could very easily be framed as just as destructive as her ex. The one thing I never thought I'd see Batman do was team up with the Joker. Things got so bad in the Nightmare timeline that Batman seeks the help of his arch nemesis. I mean, sure, he promises to snap Joker's neck at the earliest convenience, but it's still a shocking twist for the legendary enemies. In the MCU, Nick Fury is framed as a morally ambiguous spy master who often goes too far trying to protect the world. This is kind of funny considering the fact that he's a puppy compared to his DCEU counterpart, Amanda Waller. The Wall has absolutely no qualms about manipulating people's families, abusing the legal system, or, putting bombs in people's necks to get the job done. In a universe that features the likes of Lex Luthor, the Joker, and Darkseid, no one scares me as much as she does. Sure, Superman pretty well decimated Metropolis in Man of Steel, but by the time BVS rolled around, it was clear that the city was more or less rebuilt. I highly doubt the same can be said for poor Smallville that got just as devastated, despite being a much smaller and poorer community. We watched Superman, Feora, and Namek. Wait, Namek? Like Namekians? Anyway, obliterate Smallville's banks, streets, gas stations, and trains, likely putting the entire town out of work. Do you know how big a deal it is for a town that small to have an IHOP? Where are the hardworking folks of Smallville supposed to get their short stacks now, Clark? Can we get a Huntress spinoff? She was by far the best part of Birds of Prey despite her limited screen time. Even for the DCEU's darker Batman, it is kind of strange that he sat idly by while she went about her bloody vendetta across the streets of Gotham. Either Bruce turned a blind eye to it because bad guys were getting offed, or Birds of Prey happened during his globe-trotting recruitment for the Justice League. Either way, I hope she's been practicing her superhero speech for the day she inevitably points that crossbow at Batman. While it seems like a great act that the Justice League was able to resurrect Superman, it's also more than a little, unethical. Cyborg and Flash exhume Superman under the dead of night without consulting Lois or Martha about it. Sure, it was to save the world, but you'd think they would have at least given Lois a heads up about violating her boyfriend's final resting place during their little grave robbing routine. It's a shame that the chances of seeing another DCEU Justice League movie are so low. It would have been interesting to see if our heroes saved the future by following their better angels, or by making the kind of brutal choices we never thought we'd see them make.